Welcome to Parenting Vanessa Clone's podcast. All right, just a little bit about me. I'm a family interventionist. I have started this school, a nonprofit that is a K through 8, which specializes in social emotional learning, which is KFS school, along with the 3R method that works on self-regulation and body awareness, along with the social emotional learning that builds on the relationships of the child and whoever they're working with, parent or teacher. And I just have a lot to offer when it comes to interventions with kids of all ages, and it's really important for me that people have more tools in the toolkit when it comes to parenting. Welcome to Parenting with Vanessa Clone. I had this amazing honor of sitting on a panel and I met this moderator. And who are you?
Well, as far as I know, I'm Jeff Klubeck.
It was great meeting you, and I just loved what you were saying about integrity. And then you had this amazing method I've heard about, and that's what I want to talk about.
Okay, well, great. First of all, it's great to meet you too, and we're just getting started, I think. It feels like we've known each other for a couple thousand years, even though it's been 24, 26 hours or something like that.
Yes. A lot of text messages. Early morning.
If we know where our phones are.
Yeah, mine's in a taxi somewhere around Las Vegas.
Legendary presence at this conference.
Right, everyone's, I'm using everyone else's phone and contacting everybody else for these interviews.
Well, we made it. We're here.
Perfect. So let's talk about your method. And I also, a little bit more background about you. I know that you are unretired. Can you explain that?
Yeah. Unretired professor of communication. So I taught, first of all, I got my master's degree in communication at San Diego State University. And while I was there, I was a graduate teaching assistant, and I got good at teaching. I fell in love with it, and I was referred to the community college district where I taught for, in all told, 20 years. But my coaching and my consulting and my speaking and my training took me around the world, and I couldn't commit to brick and mortar anymore. So I retired. I was in too many different countries. So I retired in 2017 after 20 consecutive years of teaching adult learners communication skills at the community college or San Diego State, and then last year, it was actually now a year and a half ago, I was invited to teach organizational communication at San Diego State University, my alma mater, so I'm unretired. But it was this book, the thing you want to ask me about, The Integrity Game. It started off as a keynote and then became a book, and the book my promotions for the book got me recognized by the interim dean at San Diego State. We talked, showed her the model, told her about my background. She said, "How would you like to reconnect with your alma mater?" And the rest, as they say, is history. So I'm really feeling full circle. I met my wife at San Diego State. I got 2 degrees at San Diego State. Our firstborn son is a freshman on the baseball team right now, going to San Diego State. And they want to give me an office and a parking pass and put me in front of learners. And I get to play the integrity game a little bit. In public speaking, not so much, but in organizational communication, I used my book and my 10-point model to get learners engaged.
Can you explain what organizational communication is first? I think taking a backseat, because I think sometimes people are listening to things and like, well, what is that exactly?
Yeah, well, there's so many. You want the stand-up comedy answer to that?
Go for it.
Because it's easy. Organizations, they're institutions, right? And I have this concept of institutional habitat, right, where the people that work in institutions or are members of institutions, they're organized.
Right.
And they have to communicate with each other, right? But some of them are there to further the mission of the institution. Mm-hmm. And the rest of them are there to get all the resources they can from the institution for themselves.
Right.
So now they all have to talk to each other, but their priorities are different. And then there's politics, and then there's power plays, and then there's all the stuff. So culture, identity, power, legality, and the chapter that wasn't in the textbook that I believe belongs is recruit or be recruited. That's, we're all either recruiting people to our cause and our mission in our institutions, or we're being recruited to other people's causes and missions. So all of this stuff gets communicated.
Right. So that's a lot right there.
Yeah.
So this book that you're talking about, what's the name?
The Integrity Game is the book. It's I got intellectual property around it, but it started off as just my nickname for a little module in a coaching and leadership training. So when I'm training people how to coach, or when I'm training leaders how to apply the skills of a coach in their leadership, one of the questions that comes up in the curriculum is what happens if somebody commits to something in one session and then they get to the next session and they haven't done what they said they were going to do? What is the leader to do? And then the answer was play the integrity game.
Right.
But that's just the hook that I gave it to have the confrontational conversation. But I teach people to do that with love, right? We want to deliver hardcore accountability on a plate of I love you, right? And
accountability is hard.
Yeah. Well, most people feel that accountability is an attack if they're not ready to be 100% responsible for their own behavior. So the integrity game now becomes a Trojan horse to have the accountability conversation. One of the things I've found is interesting as I've been promoting this in my work for the last couple of years is that people do not want to associate themselves with accountability, and that's a mistake because accountability is simply the willingness to count. So they resist that, but everybody will raise their hand if I say how many of you have integrity. They want to associate with integrity.
Positive, right?
Yeah.
And how you look at yourself.
Well, the problem with wanting to associate yourself with integrity is most people want to claim that they have it and claim that nobody else does. It's like parenting or driving. Like somehow I'm really good at this, but everybody else sucks. And so my style is fast-paced, humor-laced, and in your face. So I ask my audience, raise your hand if you believe you have integrity. They all raise their hand, and I say, please keep your hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear not to shoot the messenger by the end of the keynote.
I saw that today. I was like, oh, what's going to happen next? What is he going to say? Because I also say that I'm very blunt to the point, and I think people take it the wrong way. And it's taken even my teacher a while to work with me because I just say what is going on. And then she's like, well, I'm not sure how to take that and more on a personal level, but we just move on. I just letting you know, like, this is what's going on and we could do it differently, a different way.
Right. Well, isn't it interesting that how many of us are trying to offend somebody? The answer is very little. Very few. There's a couple. There's people, no, I was really trying to offend that person. Okay, thank you for the honesty. But most people will not raise their hand if I say, how many of you in the last week or last month have said to yourself in your self-talk, I want to offend somebody? And nobody's saying that.
Right.
But isn't it interesting
how we take it so personally?
How many people get offended? So if nobody's trying to offend and everybody's getting offended, what's going on?
Right.
Where's the math? The math doesn't add up. So we judge ourselves by intent, but everybody else is just judging our behavior.
I always tell, if you are in a place of thinking about what you're going to say beforehand and your intention behind what you're saying, that is the key thing before you speak. It's always
100%.
You want to think about, okay, what is my intention? What am I doing? Is my intention to hurt that person or is my intention to help that person? What is it?
Yeah, I like to say that the road to mastery is paved with fundamentals. I love the idea of paving the road, making the bed, shaping the path.
Well,
right? And so to the degree that I can get super, super, super clear about my intentions up front, then I won't have to defend any of my microcom. The micro communications. If I just, pave the road, shape the path for them to get engaged and for them to trust my leadership. If I get permission to lead, then I don't have to bite my tongue.
Then how are you as a parent with your kids with this? Because
Well,
that's really.
I'm a failure like every other parent.
So the only reason why I'm saying all this stuff is because I was raised by a father that was always like, you would think that okay, he always thinks before he speaks, right? So he's always doing that. And so that's how I was raised, and you follow your words, your actions, right? So you have to model that. And I feel like that I was very lucky to be raised with that piece. And that's where it brings into my school and who I am.
Yeah.
Because that your words matter. What do you have, is your word and, a degree maybe sometimes.
Yeah. Well, my kids, they're fantastic. They're incredible. It's like as a parent, you never feel like you're doing enough, or you're always worried about the mistakes that you make, or there's so much to be afraid of because you love and you care so much, and after a while, you just got to trust. It's kind of funny too. It's like, well, no matter what I do, they're going to blame me for it all anyway, so I might as well just be myself. Right. I mean, they're gonna blame it on me in therapy, 20, 30 years from now anyway. But that's a joke, of course. But my son's got a Division I scholarship. He's one of the rare percentage people, in that level of that method of success. My daughter, she tested out of high school as a 16-year-old in her sophomore year because she wants to work as an adult. She's got a contract with the Screen Actors Guild. I mean, my kids are ambitious. They're go-getters. They're charge takers. They're leaders. And we take it for granted in our household. That's just normal. It's like blinking and breathing for us. But it's interesting to see how others respond to them. And I'm at a point in my life where I'm able to start to say, you know what, I think I actually have done a good job as a parent. There's some evidence here that whatever we've done as parents work. And then, of course, as a coach, you know how many times they've heard my Zoom sessions and my conversations, and it's just a normal language. The language of leadership, the language of motivation, the language of accountability is normal in our house.
And that's huge. And I think one of the things is modeling it, right?
Yeah.
So when you model it and you see it, so it's one thing to be saying something and not doing it at home. So I think the biggest thing is how you are at home.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, at home is where you feel comfortable to let your guard down, make mistakes. So my kids have seen all of that too.
Right. And then being accountable for your mistakes.
Yeah.
And showing like, hey, I wasn't perfect and I could have done this, or when I check in, like, what could I have done differently, or what is it that...
There have been mornings where I've walked into each of their bedrooms, gotten on my knees, and asked for forgiveness after a heartfelt apology. You know,
right.
It's important.
That is very important. And I think people sometimes don't think that kids... I don't want to say they don't need it, but there's some parents that it's hard for them to say sorry, and it's hard for them to say like, hey, I made a mistake, and how do we go back and like fix it? And when you just brush it under the rug like it didn't happen, then that stays, and then the next time, right, it just kind of starts accumulating and adding up, and then the child starts to not trust the parent.
Yeah,
and the actions.
In the moment that a parent is avoiding an apology or taking responsibility for their own behavior, they're not a parent anymore. They're totally human.
Yeah, that's a human way to do it.
But they're not a parent anymore, because when we're a parent, all we care about is our kids. So my ego doesn't matter now. I just want what's best for the kids. And so it's a shame when some parents, their ego defense gets in the way, and it's as automatic as fight or flight response, like the flinch and duck, like you know, if you hear a buzz by your ear. But after I'm done instinctually flinching and ducking and swatting this perceived threat, I look and it's a fly instead of a bee. So now I'm ignoring or attacking a non-threat.
Right.
And the same is true emotionally or psychologically, or as far as information is concerned. Any information that contradicts my sense of self will trigger fight or flight response as well. And so that's in our face as parents, because we're wrong all the time. But it really doesn't fit with my sense of self. So I find myself flinching and ducking at accountability. But I love my kids so much, I'm willing to say I'm sorry. I'm willing to ask for feedback. I'm willing to get on my knee and apologize, and all of the things, because they do model, and they do need to own themselves.
Now a sponsor from KFS School.
One more time.
Now a sponsor from KFS School.
KFS School is a nonprofit located in San Francisco that has a strong emphasis on individualized social, emotional learning curriculum that was created by Vanessa and has been adopted by countless schools across the Bay Area and more. With an emphasis on small classroom settings, one-on-one attention, and a warm and welcoming environment, KFS encourages your child's ability to make choices, problem solve, master skills, and develop their relationships further. Find out more at kfsschool.org today. That's kfsschool.org.
That's so important, and I really appreciate you being honest about that, because I think, especially coming from a male figure, that is definitely something that is good to hear from.
Yeah, well, in my family, no offense to my wife, who I love dearly, who, people ask me what I do for a living, and the answer is I wake up every day and I figure out how I'm going to deserve my wife. But she's an next thing I know, I'm out of bed helping people somehow. And as much as I love her and as perfect as she is, she's the last person to own her stuff. She's an analytical, she's detailed, her whole sense of self is, but I think about it, I do the systems. So when there's ever a mistake to be considered, it's the farthest thing from her sense of self. So we have to work through layers and layers and layers of ego defense to get closer, and that, opposites attract in that regard. I'm a communication guy and she's a spreadsheet person. Right. So opposites attract, and then compatibility becomes the challenge of marriage, and we're no different than any other marriage in our challenges, but God, do I love her, and God, is it worth it?
That's amazing to hear. So let's talk a little bit more about your method.
Okay.
I would love to hear, and how are you teaching? Because you are teaching public speaking, correct?
Yeah, right now.
So how are you incorporating that with your classes?
Well, I'm just modeling. I'm just living that way. In public speaking, it's a general education course, and I'm part of like a pool of teachers. It's requirements. So like last semester in the fall, first semester freshman, there was like 2,200 students taking it, and there's 30-something, 103 instructors, and it's standardized, the curriculum.
Right.
So I don't have tons of academic freedom there. A year ago at this time, I was teaching organizational communication, and I got to make the integrity game a required reading to supplement the textbook. And to go a little bit deeper, when I ask people what is integrity, I'm always going to get two answers, okay? And I've tried this with thousands of people in many speaking events, right? So one answer that people give is be your word. Do what you say you're going to do. That's integrity. Okay, cool. The other answer is do the right thing when nobody's watching, or do the same thing when nobody's watching as you would when somebody's watching. So to be quick about this, I like those answers for two reasons, but they're not enough. So
right.
I'm leading into my model expands on what I think is a deficiency there. So first of all, what we like about be your word and do the right thing regardless of who's watching is that there's an integration that occurs. Behavior with our word on one side and behavior with morals or values on another side. So there's an integration, a coming together of word with behavior or behavior with a moral compass, okay? So that's cool, integrate. Like when I ask people, what's your definition of integrity? Nobody says integration.
Right.
They start with the same 6 letters. It's right in front of our face, right? So that's the first thing I like is I get to shine a light on the word integration. Now, the reason that I like that is because most people want to associate with integrity when they're accusing others of not having it. So what I want to do is I want to intervene in
It's like you're pointing with the finger and like forefinger right back at you.
Yeah, well,
thing.
People don't want to associate with accountability for the wrong reasons, and they want to associate with integrity for the wrong reasons. And so most people have a judgmental vibrational. Like their vibrational understanding of integrity is judgment. You aren't your word. You didn't do the right thing. Where's your integrity?
Right.
Right. And so basically people want to sit in judgment of others. And I'm trying to say, like, look, this isn't good or bad or right or wrong or clean or dirty or civil or savage or saintly or demonic or any of those, adverbs or adjectives. It's just either together or not. It's integrated or it's not integrated. The two or more things are together.
You can't pick and choose when you want to do it.
Well, when you talk about the moral compass thing, with that's for sure. But what I'm getting at is just, hey, I'm either holding this microphone or I'm not.
Right.
That's not good or bad or right or wrong necessarily. You follow?
I got it.
It's bad if I'm not holding it and the interview's still going on, and it's good if I'm not holding it when the interview's over. So it's not set in stone, good or bad, right and wrong, clean and dirty, civil, savage. It's contextually specific. That's what I don't like about the do the right thing when nobody's watching, because what's the right thing and says who and how do we know? And you follow?
Yeah.
So what I want to do is encourage people to establish what their own right thing is and then hold them accountable to that, rather than telling them what the right thing is and then judging them for being out of integrity when I haven't bothered to find out what they think the right thing is.
Well, how do you find out what they think the right thing is?
Ask them.
That's so funny.
It was like mind-blowing concept. Like, hey.
Well, okay, that's what I tell parents when I walk in to do consultations, and they're like, "Well, I got a call one time, and the mom's like, I think my child didn't want to do homework. He's suffering, da da da." And so they were like, "Can you come over?" And then I come over, and I go, "So what's going on with it?" He's like, "I'm just tired," and I'm all, "Can't that just be the answer?" It's really, sometimes life is so just that simple, but we overthink everything all the time. Yeah. And I think people are so scared to be direct and just ask the right question. It's like, okay, this might make you uncomfortable or not, but can we just ask this question and see?
What's more uncomfortable is not asking.
And then you're assuming something else, right?
And building a mansion on top of quicksand.
Right. And then 100%.
Yeah. It's so, the other thing too about what I like about those two answers is that it's our behavior that's the evidence of our integrity. It's not like, well, what I thought I was going to do or what I intended to do, or so we judge ourselves by intent,
right?
But the rest of the world is just judging our action, and behavior is the evidence of our integrity, right? And so we want to focus on integration and take the judgment out of it, and I want to focus on behavior. And I want to make it easy and fun to look within, and most people are pointing in the other direction. So what I don't like about those two answers, okay, is that if I said I was going to drink 18 beers before this interview, and then I drank 18 beers before this interview, I will have done what I said I was going to do. But could I claim integrity? Well, I know somebody like smart out there. Well, if you're trying to test your functional alcoholism in a public speaking setting, if that's your purpose in life, then maybe. But we all know the answer is no. The other thing too, like I said, is that what's right or wrong or good or bad is a moving target. It's like there's competing success principles. Sometimes time is money. Sometimes patience is a virtue. Mm-hmm. Sometimes if you never quit, you never lose, and sometimes you better know when to cut your losses.
100%.
So it's a moving target rather than just one thing that's fixed that I get to point a finger at somebody for. So that's why I don't like those two answers. They're good and they're part of the mix, but they're not enough. So I created a 10-point model where if we can, and they end up being question sets, and I have a feeling you're going to ask me about it, right? But the idea is it's a 10-point model which sets up for curriculum, content, programming, like it's 10 points of entry into personal professional growth conversations, and then convert them into question sets, right?
Okay.
And ask good questions, get good answers, and hold people accountable to their answers. Right? And so questions of, are you ready? Are we ready for this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so first of all, purpose. Right? I didn't popularize that. Simon Sinek popularized purpose with Start With Why, but the power of purpose has been around for a long time. But if I ask 100 people, how many of you have integrity, they'll all raise their hand. I'll say, okay, with your other hand, write down your purpose and pass it forward. Crickets. Mm-hmm. Right? So if you don't know what your purpose is in any given moment, right, then everything else you're doing is building a mansion on top of quicksand.
Right.
Okay. So purpose. So like, what's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of your life? What's the meaning of my marriage? What's the meaning of this interview? What's the meaning of our friendship? What's the meaning of this event, this conference, this panel, you can apply it to anything. What's the purpose here? And then every question that you have to answer about it is informed by that purpose, right? If I'm going to give a speech and I've got 1,000 decisions to make about that speech, the words and the slides and the hooks and the stories, and there's so much I could do. What's my purpose? Entertain, inform, or persuade. Okay, now every decision should serve
Wait,
that.
what did you said that really fast?
Entertain, inform, or persuade.
Okay, got it.
So now every decision should serve that purpose.
Right. Okay.
Right? Then the second point on the model is gifts. In one word, it's gifts. But by the time I'm done asking all my questions around it, it comes through to competitive advantage from a marketing perspective. But we start with, what's our mindset around giving and receiving? First of all, are we willing to give? Are we willing to receive? Second of all, what counts as a gift? God-given, man-made, self-generated? And then what becomes, I have a feeling that anything other than average, anything above or below average is a gift. Like even rock bottom or wake up calls or slaps in the face.
Oh,
that's
100%.
what a gift, right? Because you can spring, right? There's no mistake just learning wrapped in a little discomfort.
That's where you're going to learn, though,
Yeah.
right? Anytime that you are discomfort, it's like, okay, what is it, my challenge, and what do I need to look at here?
Yeah, well, how many people are optimizing their gifts or investing in their gifts or celebrating or doing assessments to figure out what their gifts are, deciding what they want to be gifted in versus ignoring, suffocating? How many people can sing like a bird, but they're waiting tables? No offense to people that wait tables, right? How many people can solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded, but they're selling insurance? No offense to people that sell insurance, right? In other words, where's the integration between our gifts, our talents, our abilities, and then
being able to follow
our application? So if I don't know purpose, I'm going to gifts. And if once I work on and get an idea of gifts, I'm going back to purpose, knowing what my gifts are. But then I move forward, and now if I've got purpose and gifts, now I can start to imagine a potential.
Okay.
So the third point on the model is questions of potential. And I break that down chronologically. So first of all, vision is the farthest out we could possibly see. Describe what you see. When you look out into your future, as far as you could possibly see, what do you see? Describe it. Your vision is a description. Still far a ways out, but nearer than farthest out that I could possibly see is mission, right? I'm on a mission. That would prove I'm on my way to the vision.
Right.
What can I achieve? What can I accomplish? Right? I was on a mission to write the integrity game, or I'm on a mission to, train 1,000 leaders, or, the United States, we were on a mission to land a human being on the moon and return them safely because we had a vision of being number one in space exploration, right?
Right.
So there's a vision, and then the mission is a huge accomplishment, a destination, an arrival. And then nearer than that, but annual, is the word I use for objectives. So if I can get people to answer questions of vision, mission, and objectives, now we're getting somewhere. Purpose, gifts, vision, mission, and objectives. And the fourth peg is then goals. And for anything less than a year, we do quarterly SMART goal setting. And so we infuse accountability and motivation into that model. And it's very what by when based.
So like a mission board, pretty much, kind of?
Yeah, I mean, if I understand what you mean by mission board, it could get there, but it's more than vagary. You follow? It's more
It's like very specific.
A dream board. Like like for me in the land of accountability, when I'm coaching people, of course, it gets pretty transactional. But it starts transformational, purpose, gifts, potential. And then we get into goal setting, it starts to get transactional.
Right.
What do you want to achieve by April 1st, July 1st, October 1st,
Oh, wow.
January 1st?
So you're very specific.
What by when?
Okay.
Right. And then we can get even more specific because the fifth point on the model is strategies, tactics, and resources. So once you tell me what you want to achieve by July 1st, now the brain will start to work on, well, how do we do it? And there's a how for everything. There's more than one how for everything. Equifinality means multiple paths to the same destination. So with all the choices that we have and strategy, like the one I like to say with people is that if I want to, go discover new land, strategies, tactics, resources, I probably need to be trained as a sailor, get a dedicated and loyal crew, get the best boat ever built, perhaps get a pretty good map that the stargazers could come up with, and maybe ask the queen for a blank check that I can go and trade with.
Right.
But none of that matters if I believe the world is flat.
Right.
Despite all of those advantages. So somewhere in this model, there's behavioral intervention and mindset work, etc. So that takes us to the next point in the model, which is word/commitment. And like you said, care with our word choices. I'm very careful to say could instead of should. I'm very careful to say genuinely dislike instead of hate.
Right.
Yeah, right. And so not just the word.
Genuinely dislike that.
Yeah.
Take that one.
I'm not fond of. You cannot vibrate the same way if you're saying I genuinely dislike, or I'm not fond of, or that's not my favorite versus hate. Like we give ourselves a different hit of emotion when we use certain word choices, right? So I want to pay attention to the power of language in and of itself and how it's used in the vibrational element, and then but also what's our relationship with our word and the expectations that we set for self and others.
Right.
So we want to condition that and get people focused on intentional and careful about word choice and careful about giving their word to something. I always like the analogy. I remember when I was learning how to coach and consult and train and all of that. It was like, treat your word like $1 million that you won't get back until you do what you said you've done.
Well, it's just the same thing when you tell a child that you're going to be there at a certain time and you're not. Right? Like what message are you sending? And then also what are you doing to the other one that you're learning? That child's learning that your words don't mean anything and that they can't trust you.
Yeah.
Like simple things like that are really, really can hurt.
Did you say you make house calls and visit parents?
I do.
Let me check my wife and see if she'll share your address, because no offense to her, but she's so busy. She's corporate and she is productive and she does so many things, but that happens a lot, where the kids are coming to me and saying, Dad, well, Mom said, and I'm like, well, do you want me to call Mom and hold her accountable on what she told you? Or can you speak up for yourself and remind Mom what she told you? Well, I don't want, then what's it going to be? Take it, leave it, or change it. But I wasn't the one that told you.
It's, I think for me, just because I had one parent, because my parents are divorced, and then I had one side of I call my biological father, was never on time and he just wouldn't show up. It was like, well, graduation, no, I'm not going to, I'll be there. But no, he never was there. Or always late. And then I have another, my father that is my father, but like my stepdad, which I don't like to say, but always on time and never late. And if I say 9 o'clock, he's already at 8:55. So it's this thing when you see the contrast, and you see like, okay, what does that mean to me? And then who do I trust and who do I reach out to?
Yeah. Well, punctuality is accountability.
Right. I'm never late, by the way.
Yeah. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to just leave it as a cliffhanger. There's other points on this model, but can we tease your audience and make them go out to Amazon.com and buy the Integrity Game?
Do it, please, but make sure that you let them know where you can get it.
No, it's Amazon.com, the Integrity Game. They'll find it on Amazon. And then the book is a parable. It's an easy to read, set to baseball. There's a season ticket holder and an uninspired hot dog vendor. And by the end of the game, by the end of the book, the guy's not slinging dogs anymore.
Well, I will tell you, I did look at the book and I looked at you, and what did I tell you? I said, you write just like me.
Oh, stream of consciousness.
Yes, I said exactly how I'd write.
Stream of consciousness. Well, I think we're fast friends. This is the start of something really beautiful and long term.
Do you have a website, by the way, really fast?
Yeah, people can go to www.tig for the Integrity Game, TIG arena.com. The arena, get your tickets.
Awesome.
Come on down to the arena. There's vendors, there's players, there's coaches, there's sponsors, there's advertisers. There's there's room for everybody at the arena. TIGarena.com.
That's why you're asking me about the Warriors. First time I met you.
Oh, you know what? If I weren't such a Laker fan, I'd find my way to cheering for the Warriors. I've been to that environment, and shout out to diehard Warriors fan Todd Sue, who is maybe I'm sure watching. or listening to the radio station after catching, the after game show or something like that. Todd Sue is probably one of the greatest Warrior fans I know in all of the Bay Area. So shout out.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. It's been great.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Really loved it.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Parent Vanessa Kalam. Parenting with Vanessa Kalam.
And if you have any questions about your child or want to hear other tips, please go to Vanessa's website, vanessacalone.com at VANESSAKAHLON.com or email colonefamilyservices@gmail.com.